Hi everyone, and welcome to this assembly to celebrate LGBT History Month in the UK. The theme for LGBT History Month 2022 is "The Arc is Long", and is from a line attributed to Martin Luther King. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. 2022 also marks the 50th anniversary of the first UK Pride March in London. LGBT History Month is able to be celebrated in schools every February due to the abolition of Section 28 in 2003. It has been celebrated in the UK since 2005. However, the event began in the USA in 1994. The aim of LGBT History Month is to promote equality and diversity for the benefit of everybody. So let's consider what LGBT actually means. L stands for lesbian, which is a woman who is attracted to other women. G stands for gay, a man or woman who is attracted to people of the same sex. B equals bisexual, and this describes someone who can be attracted to both men and women. T is transgender. This is a person whose gender identity is different from the sex that they were assigned at birth. Now, often there is a plus added to the end of this acronym, and this is to include any other sexuality or gender that people choose to identify with. It's likely that you will know of many famous people who are LGBT. They come from all walks of life and are in all parts of society, from rugby players, CEOs, Olympic divers, professional models, chat show hosts, actors, singers, and so on. They are as diverse as everybody else. Let's take a look now at a timeline of LGBT rights in England and Wales. In 1967, the Sexual Offences Act decriminalised sex between two men over the age of 21, so it was no longer illegal for two men to have sex. In 1969, the Stonewall riots occurred in New York in response to police brutality against gay people, and this was seen as a key moment to raise awareness about LGBT equality. And in 1972, the first ever Pride March was held in London. In 1988, Section 28 was introduced, which banned schools from promoting homosexuality, which effectively stopped schools from supporting LGBT students struggling with bullying, and it stopped schools from educating people about LGBT issues. In 1992, the World Health Organization declassified same-sex attraction to no longer be considered a mental illness. In the year 2000, the UK government changed the age of consent for homosexual couples to be the same as heterosexual couples, which is 16 years old, and the ban was lifted on LGBT people serving in the armed forces. In 2002, same-sex couples were granted equal rights to adopt children. In 2003, Section 28 was repealed, which means it was no longer against the law to discuss LGBT issues in school. And it's also one of the reasons why we were able to show you this video today. In 2004, the Gender Recognition Act allowed trans people to legally recognise their own gender. Also in 2004, the Civil Partnership Act was passed, which gave same-sex couples the chance to access the same rights as married, straight couples. However, a civil partnership is not a marriage, and it wasn't until 2013 that equal marriage was given to same-sex couples, allowing them to get married. The latest advancements in LGBT rights came in 2020, when same-sex marriage was made legal in Northern Ireland. But what about looking to the future? Globally, there are 72 countries where homosexuality is still illegal, and in some countries still punishable by death. Many of these laws were imposed during British colonial rule. There is also a disproportionate number of young LGBT people who are homeless, and LGBT people tend to have higher rates of mental illness. Now, let's consider some contributions of LGBT people to our society. First is Sally Ride. She was LGBT, and she was the first American woman in space. Next is Alan Turing. Alan Turing broke the German Enigma code that is widely credited with reducing the casualties during the Second World War and shortening the war by as much as 2 years. He's also credited with being the inventor of the modern computer. Olympian Tom Daley, one of Britain's best-known athletes, made his Olympic debut aged 14 and went on to win his first gold medal at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. He was made an OBE in 2022 for services to diving, charity and LGBTQ+ rights. Dame Ethel Mary Smith was an English composer and a member of the women's suffrage movement. Her song, The March of the Women, became known as the anthem of the women's suffrage movement. In America, Harvey Milk was the nation's first openly gay elected official. And finally, Bayard Rustin. He was the chief organiser of the Washington March when Martin Luther King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Now, let's consider the rainbow symbol. This symbol has long been adopted by the LGBT community to represent acceptance and safety. You may see people in the community, in workplaces or even schools, wearing rainbow lanyards and badges. This is as a symbol to show that they respect that people are different, and, more importantly, that diversity is worth celebrating. Now let's consider what part you can play to show that you respect diversity. If you say, "That's gay," then question your language. It's likely that you didn't mean it in reference to homosexuals. However, using it in a negative fashion is offensive. Try to be aware of the language you use and what it might mean to other people. Let's end with a common misunderstanding in schools. The process of coming out means telling people that you are LGBT. And a common misunderstanding in schools is that if you come out to a teacher, they will tell everybody, including your parents. This is not true. If you tell a teacher, they will not call your parents immediately or tell other staff. They will support you and give you any advice that they can. The information remains confidential between a teacher and a student. However, there is an exception. If they think that you are in a dangerous situation, such as meeting older people while you are underage. So finally, think about how you can celebrate diversity this month. Perhaps you can use examples of LGBT people or scenarios in your schoolwork as a way of trying to usualise and celebrate LGBT people. Take care everybody, and thank you for watching.